Ready to launch off. If you want to be part of the launch off impact on LinkedIn, howdy, and welcome to the launch off. My name is Danuin and I'm your host. And I would love to find out where you are watching from. Where are you launching off from your city, from your bedroom, from the toilet? You can launch off anywhere. I'm really excited to have my guest all the way from Philadelphia to talk about her work. But before we bring her on, let us know. Let's warm up this room and let me know where you're watching from. And Keanu is watching from my bedroom too. So hi, Keanu. Nice to see you. Also, this show is powered by Restream. You can go live on 30 platforms. I'm going live on 4 platforms today: Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And if you have any questions, just pop it up on the comments, and Lila and I will answer those questions for you. But yes, you can get $19 off your plan if you want to join and go live on 30 different other platforms. So what is the launch of? So I've been very curious, especially being an artist here in Australia, how people, have an idea and decide to action that idea. And I really love the entrepreneur spirit. And the launch of is that show where we investigate the entrepreneur spirit of creating and making a business and really changing and transforming lives. And my guest today, she transforms lives using words, communication, and the core of her work is values. And we're going to talk about that work very, very soon. But I would love to find out where you are watching from. And let's bring on our guest, our 6th guest on the launch off for season 2. Please welcome Lila Smith.
Hi. Am I still allowed to say howdy now that I'm in Philadelphia instead of Dallas?
Yes, I say howdy all the time.
You're one of those Aussie cowboys, cowgirls, cow people.
And we're also human.
We are all human. Shout out to Mike Morgan, the designer of these shirts.
Yeah, because that's how I, that was in 2018 that I met you, and this is how Mike got these T-shirts. What was the story behind these T-shirts?
Mike made these sometime around when LinkedIn Local was at its height, at its prime, and people were doing in-person live networking events that were more about human connection than about the data on our LinkedIn profiles. We got to really meet people in person and hug them, smell them for better or for worse, eat with them, drink with them, and learn with them, and just get to know people's energy, something that you can't necessarily see unless their words are so rife with their personality on their LinkedIn profile. There's just only so much that you can tell from those sections.
And, we've both met Mike Morgan. I met him in 2019 when I did my little LinkedIn tour and got to meet you too.
Yes.
Why is the human connection so important? Why is it so important? Because, data, people love stats, but why the human connection?
People think that human connection is devoid of data, but it isn't, right? We store so many data in our heads, in our subconscious, from every relational interaction we've had throughout the entire course of our lives. So when we meet a new person, all of that provides context. We can make snap judgments from that context. We can make assumptions from that context, but we can also make connections from that context. Like you and I, when we first met face to face, on Zoom or whatever it was, we got to see from completely opposite ends of the world how much we had in common energetically. I recognized you immediately as one of my people, right? Like the theater people, the actors, the comedians, the creatives.
Yes.
And we know because we share a history, we share a context,
Mm.
and we can find all of that data in our memory, in our subconscious, and pull it to the forefront to have an immediate human connection with another
Mm.
person. And that's what we did.
And we did. We met in 2019, and I still remember you and I poolside, just talking about life. Even and this was only 2 days of meeting you, but being connected via the internet with you, and I just felt so at
Right.
ease and so lucky to have that a commonality with you, which is our art form, because you are a Broadway performer. You are an amazing and beautiful singer who's graced my show just doing karaoke. Yeah, are you still singing? Are you still singing in the shower? Are you performing?
Yeah, I sing in the shower. I sing mostly lullabies these days, or really whatever it is that will put my nephew Miles to sleep or calm him down. I have found certain songs like It's Tricky by Run DMC works pretty well, just as well as Corner of the Sky from the musical Pippin. So I have been pulling from all kinds of corners and reaches of my musical history in order to soothe this baby who's 4 months and 4 days old today.
And thank you for mentioning that, because yeah, I want to talk to you about you moving to Philly for a man who is Miles, your beautiful nephew. How's the move? You've uprooted from Dallas, Texas, where I last saw you, to
Right.
Philadelphia. How is that all going? And yeah, how is it to be singing lullabies to this gorgeous next generation?
Oh, it's heaven. It's heaven. I went through a lot during the pandemic. I think you and I have that in common, where it was the hardest time of my life. And I had some things and some people that really got me through it. And I had at the time this family in Dallas that I was very close with, but it wasn't my family.
Mm,
And ultimately, it was something that could be taken away from me, kind of at the whim of any of those people or just life circumstances. And here was my family across the country on the East Coast. I was missing them so
mm,
painfully. My brother and sister-in-law had this baby in July this year, but they were pregnant. She was pregnant throughout the pandemic, and I wanted to be there, wanted to be with them, wanted to help with things like picking out a registry and passing a phone on Amazon back and forth. What do you think about this thing? What do you think about this thing? And it just was, I felt so isolated and was really feeling the distance for the first time since I had moved away.
mm,
Because when you travel a lot, it becomes like distance is not distant because you can be there tomorrow. And when you
mm.
can't just be there tomorrow, you have to I had to think about where I was today.
Yeah.
Is this the place? Is my heart fulfilled here? Do I have the support here that I can trust? Do I have value here?
Mm,
And am I getting what I need out of place, a sense of place? And in the pandemic, place kind of ceased to mean anything because I could be in a room in my apartment, wherever that was. It could have been Kansas, Canada, Bali, wish it was Bali. but
yes, me too.
right. But I ended up coming and seeing my brother and sister-in-law in April. And then when the baby was born, I got to meet him in August. I came for a visit,
Yeah.
met the baby for the first time. They put Miles in my arms. And I said, I'm moving here. I'm not leaving. I'm not going back.
Yeah.
I had gotten a one-way ticket just because I didn't know how long they would want me in Philadelphia to help out or
Mm,
when other people would be coming in. But I ended up just staying and not going back, except to pack up my apartment, pay out my lease early. It was like extra money, but like when you feel your heart called to where it will feel full, what is
mm,
money? You can always make more money, but
yeah.
you can never get time back.
No.
And so I had this sense of urgency. You felt that, right, with your little niece,
Yeah.
when And that must have
Yes.
been so hard for you throughout the pandemic and being in lockdown and away from her, so close yet so far away.
Yeah, it was
The
a
face
massive
and the cheeks.
struggle. I know. And now she's walking and talking and singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So I
Oh,
totally I totally hear you, Lila, when you speak about being there for family. It's
yeah,
like that's a value for me. Community is a huge value for me. So being there and present and saying, I am here for you, um, is something that you can't put a cost to.
right,
There's no, you can't buy that. So
right.
I know that your family and Miles will be grateful, are grateful that you've traveled across the country to be family and one with them. I think that's so beautiful. Oh,
Yeah. No, all the energetic investments we make into people that we have our close relationships with.
yeah,
And I have this massive bank of love. Um, but when you put that investment into a family that, well, that is your family. And for me, it meant I know every moment that I put into this boy, into this family, I'll get to see increase and grow exponentially in our relationship throughout all of the years of his life. I
yeah.
want him to know me now in an everyday sense. And we have that. And it's just the most incredible gift.
And
I
we
know.
love babies.
So I'm like
When
having
Lila
my
and I
own.
were on the poolside, we bonded about family and children, and, I
Mhm.
hear you. No, it's the gut. The gut was like, I know where I need to be, and it's home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
this
know,
whole
that
chat.
sense of urgency because you're like this too, right? And I wonder if it's something that passionate creative people all have in common, that sense of urgency, that sense of being driven towards the creation of something that is more beautiful than what we already have. Like we're going towards something. There's something we get out of it. And
Yes.
in the building, in the moving forward, there's that building, the creation of a new life.
Mm. Well, I think, I'm hearing what you're saying because we are yes people in our creation. Because if we were creating and we said no, we'd be blocking ourselves. So
Right.
I think any signs or flow, we go with it. We don't
Yeah.
fight against it. And so, hence why we're here to talk about your work. And I do want to bring up this, which is, from Broadway to say things better. Well, it's you have created a phenomenon, for corporates to say things better using your skills as an artist. Um, yeah, talk about say things better because it started in 2018. Was that correct?
I started developing it in 2017. I
Mm,
had people saying things to me, about comments that I would make on LinkedIn and how they were valuable, that I was a good communicator. And I thought everybody was a good communicator. And I kind of took it for granted until I saw in my UMAP that I not only is communication a strength of mine, but writing, portraying images, presentation are all motivated skills of mine for how I communicate. And my values include love and connection with other humans and community and communication. So I am wired to communicate. Which means, as all of us do, I took it for granted. I didn't think it was anything special. I didn't think that there was anything about it until I learned that there were words for it. And it helped me to see that I actually had something special. And then I wanted to know what it was, right? People ask me, how do
mm,
you just do that? And I thought, well, it feels natural, but let me look at what the process is. Because you and I both know, and any creatives watching this know, your creative process feels natural, feels like flow, but yours may look different from mine, right?
mm.
And any creatives have their own process, their own flow that gets them into that process, that build. of
Mm.
something that belongs to them and then can be given to others. So I had to take inventory of what the steps were that I was going through that I had been taking for granted.
Yes.
And I did this in Amy Blaschka and Bruce Kasanov's book, I Am, which is a prompt journal. And I would draw pictures and draw little things expressing thoughts, breaking them down like little characters and what one character would say to the other and how they would make them feel. And then I started realizing what I was doing was illustrating and writing out the process that I used in my acting training to communicate through these characters in this fictitious world with such intention. Why would we be using so much more intention in this fiction world, in this creation that we're building for characters who are not even real people most of the time, and not be doing that in our real life, in our real connections? It didn't make sense to me, and so I created something that would fix it.
Yeah. And it did, and I remember when we did a Zoom in 2018, I was actually, I'll be very honest, I was quite uh, shy, oh, and also quite scared of meeting you because
Me?
yeah, no, I'm serious. I'm just me being honest. Is because my values weren't very, the foundations of my values weren't very strong. And here I was
Wow.
meeting someone who just knew, and that's scary to someone, you know, who's trying to figure out how
Yeah.
or what their values are. And I remember meeting you, and it was powerful because I knew I had to meet you in the US in 2019 because it is intentional. Everything you do needs to be intentional because that's energy management. That's what my coach says. When you're intentional, you're actually managing your energy, and you're not, you
Yeah.
know,
I like that.
spreading it out and try to say, vomit just to fill up space and air.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Say Things Better came from your all these years of training as a performer to making a business that's seen you travel all around the States, helping businesses say things better. It's a hashtag.
Yeah. It is. Hashtag say things better. And it's not say things perfectly. It's just when you simply add intention, you do say things better.
Mm,
When you make one of the ends, right? When you have intent and you're clear on what that is, and you manage your content, the information that you are looking to receive and what you're looking to give, and making adjustments like we always do when we take a direction in theater or respond to the audience's energy, making
mm,
adjustments to our audience and what they're giving to us and what they need from us as well. That's really it.
mm,
That's everything you need in communication: intent, content, adjustment. And I have this series of steps and say things better that help us go through that the way that
mm.
actors go through intentional communication for their characters.
There you go. Well, make sure you get onto it and be part, because you do have an accelerator program, don't you, where you work with a hive of um, uh,
I do. The mastermind is coming back
that's it.
in
When is it coming
2022.
back? When is it
In
back?
March of 2022. So there are going to be some new formats. We're going to have texting actually to follow up, and some games that we're going to play. The format will be different, but the value is going to be very rich. And we'll have lots of like ongoing communication conversations about communication, about
Yes.
what's going on for people specifically, so that whatever it is that's in someone's life at that moment, they bring that, whether it's their work, a personal relationship, a goal, and then as a group, we break it down and say, let's figure out why this is important to you. If this really is aligned with your major goals, is this your motivation?
Mm,
And getting to kind of call each other out on what objectives we are or aren't setting in our communication. Like, what do you really hope to get out of this? And it
bam.
helps us to not be petty, and it helps us to be our higher selves with each other, and creating a community of intentional communicators who hold each other and ourselves accountable to that higher standard.
Yeah. And how important is it to have feedback as a communicator? Because I feel like a lot of people are afraid of feedback, and as artists like us, to be better in our art form, we need to listen to feedback and choose not
Right.
to listen to people's opinions. But how important is that for people to communicate better?
It's just as important as getting education and anything else you might ever want to do.
Mm,
Feedback is education.
yes.
Sometimes it's here's what you can do differently in your entire life. Sometimes it's here's what you can do differently at work, or just with this coworker, or just with your boss, or just when you send emails. There's always a way to say things better that you can do if you know what better means to the person who's actually receiving your communication. What does it
Yeah.
mean to them?
What does better mean? That's it, isn't
Right.
it?
Well, we know what it means to us, right? Like we're kind of aware of our own communication pitfalls. We know when we say and a lot. We know when we talk too much.
Yeah.
We know when we tune out when somebody is talking about a specific subject. We know when we look down a lot writing notes, and we know that people feel distanced as a result of that unless we say, hey, what you're saying is really interesting. I've got to take a note about that. And we
Yeah.
nod our heads and we say, okay, now this is what I wrote down. Is that right? I want to make sure I get it, and giving and getting that two-way street of communication. It's so important to have that feedback from the
Yeah.
people that we're communicating with, so
Mm.
that we know if we are doing better by our standards and if we're doing well enough by theirs. Are we giving them what they need to have that connection back?
It's a transaction. It's
Yeah,
a flow.
kind of.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
It's a
There you go.
partnership.
It's a partnership.
Yeah.
Um, well, we're gonna talk about your LinkedIn journey, and if you are joining us, this is powered by Restream, and I do wanna talk about the story of how you took this business. Well, you really created it on LinkedIn. It had
Oh,
its
yeah.
It had its, like, drive on LinkedIn, and, please go and check out Lila's, LinkedIn, because it is very clear, it you don't put in, sometimes people's LinkedIns are a mess, but you're very clear in your communication on your LinkedIn. How did you launch off on LinkedIn? Because a lot of people on here are like, "How do I launch off a business here?" But why LinkedIn for you?
LinkedIn was where my community was. I discovered myself and my business here. The people in the community on LinkedIn are the ones who sought me out and said, you seem to be good at this. Can I pay you for that? And I was like, sure, really? You want to give me money for this?
Yeah.
And so it kind of was organic for me. But the reason why I recommend that other people who didn't necessarily start here but are coming over now is that this audience is engaged in a professional development and personal development mindset from the time that they open the little blue and white app, without the bird on it,
Yeah.
without the infinity, whatever. We end up here because we want to learn and grow and connect, because we want to move forward in our careers, because we want to find that connection who's got the inside scoop or who has the new tool. We are all here to innovate in our careers, and we're
Mm.
surrounded by other people who are thinking and doing and trying things. So it's like the benefit of having trial and error, but you don't have to do all of the trials and you don't have to make all of the errors. You get to just be connected with people who can give you feedback, who want what you have to offer them, and they're in a buying mindset when it comes to personal and professional development.
Mm. Well, I feel like you and I had two very different approaches. Being artists ourselves, we both use LinkedIn very differently. You went on to promote your business, say things better, and connect with professionals who, need your help. Whilst I came onto LinkedIn on the joy side, which was very personal, and just dancing. Um,
Yeah,
did you did you receive anyone saying to you, "Oh, why are you on LinkedIn?" I don't like because
I've had
you
people like in my very personal sphere
yes.
ask me, why are you on LinkedIn if what you want to do is sing a song? I even had my, like a friend that I was very close with at the time unfollow me on LinkedIn, which was a compromise instead of blocking me, but was unfollowing me on LinkedIn because she hated so much to see that I was singing. Didn't
Mm.
understand what performance really was except for seeking attention.
Yes.
And didn't think that that kind of attention for some kind of creative communication really belonged on LinkedIn.
Mm.
But there were hundreds of people who begged to differ. And anybody who puts out a creative idea will hear from people who are not comfortable with it, who don't find value in it, and that's okay because
Yeah.
there's so much value here for everyone.
Yeah.
There are all different kinds of content creators, all different kinds of creative minds and strategic minds here, sharing what we know and what we feel and what we love and what we create and build together. But what I wanted to do was express and be free and liberate other people who wanted to do the same. And when you got up on video and in a bikini, in like a professional dress that you would wear to a workshop, in any kind of way that you would show up, you were so free yourself that it really liberated the people viewing.
Yeah.
And that was the impact, not
Mm.
just like what attention do you get for dancing on video, but what is the impact on the people who are giving you their attention? That's the rest of it. That's the
Mm.
continuation of the performance dynamic. It's
Ah,
what the audience takes away with them. And that's what I cared about. And I
yes.
cared about me and I cared about my love for performance and my
Mm.
love for the arts and my strong, passionate beliefs that what I do as a communication leader could completely change the world. So why not LinkedIn? Why not where people are going to take this to work where we spend a third of our lives? Go,
Yes.
take this, take my energy and let it empower you to go do this for yourself in whatever way you can.
I just love what you're just saying, and you just reminded me something about the power of music and song. Is that in 3 to 4 minutes, the lyrics, the melody are so intentional. Like it goes straight to the
Mm.
heart. Like, and that's why now I hear it. Like, that's why you put your voice into that music because it
Yeah.
just shows people immediately where and how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen Lila sing, just go to her LinkedIn. She does sing on LinkedIn. We haven't sung on LinkedIn for a
That's
while.
been something. You're right about that. It's like a deep dive into a moment, right? That's why to have a song in the middle of a musical. Words are not enough sometimes.
Oh,
Sometimes
yes.
you need the movements. Sometimes you need the music. Sometimes you need the full orchestra and every single voice of an instrument in that orchestra and pianissimo, and you need it very, very, very big and loud and grand. And sometimes you need to create shapes out of furniture or set pieces or lighting in order to completely communicate a point. So in that
Mm.
3 to 4 minutes of a song in a musical theater piece or in a music video or in any song, we get to explore one thought in such depth and with so many different languages all playing in concert that we really get that moment and we really understand it. It's really communicated to us. That's why
Yes.
music is so universal.
It is so universal, so universal. And that's why I adore you because you use music to express yourself. So thank you for sharing your gift, not just on LinkedIn, but to people that adore and love you. So thank you.
Thank you, Diana. It really means so much. I think when there was that friend, but there are other people too, who just are not into it or they
Yes.
don't understand it. And if I only listened to those voices, if I only took that feedback, which doesn't align with my values, right?
Mm.
But if I only took that feedback, I would feel like I was the one who was wrong or bad or less valuable than I really am. That's why taking the feedback from the people who get value out of what you bring is so important as well.
Yeah. Which is perfect because we talked about it before we started this live, which is you did a post called Constructed Empathy. And I just want to bring up the question you asked is, if what will you lose if they are right? Or just this one, and which I love, because you had it 4 times. What will you lose if you're right? If they are right? What you will gain if they are right? What will they lose if you're right? What will they gain if you're right? Or just this one, what do they think they'll gain if you believe they are right?
Right.
Could you talk about that with motivation and objective, and how that is the way to say things better?
We hear people all the time fighting against us. We see them as the enemy. We get defensive. We feel put down because they judge us. They say things to us that feel critical. But when somebody is criticizing you, you have to ask yourself, not what does that have to do with me? You know, what about me is not correct? But
Mm,
why would they bother? Because they could just stay silent. They have something to gain from opening their mouth and being brave enough to give you that feedback.
yes.
They have something to gain, or they wouldn't do it. In fact, everybody in the entire world is out for something positive. Anytime that we think that someone is out to get us or put us down, we get angry. We feel distant. We feel like they're the enemy. What do you get when you construct the empathy? Well, that's what we get as actors when we align our personal story with a character we might not agree with. We
Mm,
find something in their story that's analogous to something in ours, and that is how we relate. We say, okay, I may not react the way that person is reacting in this situation, but when would I react that way? What would the circumstances have to be like for me? And construct that in our minds. Build the world of that moment and live in it for just a second so that we can feel what would make us feel that anxious, what would make us feel that sad, what would make us feel that hurt. And
mm,
then we can understand, because we're calling upon all that data we were talking about earlier, right? Like all that data in our context of how we react when we're hurt,
yes.
how we react when we feel ostracized, how we react when we feel unseen, how we react when our boundaries are crossed. What would push us to the point where we would act the way that they are acting? And that is empathy. It's at
Mm,
least the pursuit of it, right? We can't ever really truly understand what somebody else feels or is going through without living their exact life.
mm,
So, in that way, empathy is kind of a fallacy. But as a pursuit, the pursuit of empathy, the construction, the building of that empathy through our own intentions and actions helps us to connect. And instead of seeing them as the enemy who's against us, we can understand them more as a partner in a moment.
mm. I hear that when you say constructed, I also hear boundaries as well, because with empathy you hear emotion. You don't know what's going to come to you, or what's been transferred in the relationship that you have. But I feel like when you say constructed, it's actually removing yourself and looking at the box and saying,
Right.
so this is feedback. This is not meant to hurt me. So it's actually protecting you as the person receiving it or giving it.
Right.
Yeah, it allows you to be a professional in hearing empathy.
Yes, it does. And it helps you to understand in what context that feedback will be valuable, even if
Mm,
it's just in this one relationship. And then you get to decide whether that is appropriate to make changes, to make those adjustments appropriate to your boundaries, appropriate to who you are, appropriate to your values.
mm,
And if it is, why not? Why
yeah.
not cross the bridge? And if it isn't, at least then you know what to do with that feedback, right? Like, bye. See you later. I understand how you feel, but like, because I've constructed the empathy and all of that, but that's not for me. So here you go. You can have that back.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you
can
for
take
bringing the eggplant dish to my dinner, but I'm allergic to it and hate it, and it's just never going to
that's
happen.
that's it. That's feedback there. Um,
Right.
I have a question from our audience, which is from Erin Nicole from the USA. She's asked, "What's the
Hi,
neatest
Erin.
collab you've done, and what was it made? What was it that made it so neat?"
The neatest collab.
Yes.
Oh gosh. You know, last night I was talking with a client. There are so many, right? Anything that I ever do is a collaboration. I'm
Yes.
not a solo person. I create things in partnership, no matter what. Even when I'm painting something, I bring in the inspiration from Color Snack Studios and Volta Volution Smith and how she creates these watercolors that explore a moment and make it joyful. Um,
Mm.
Even when she's not there, I'm collaborating in a moment. But last night I was on a call with a client and I just really liked the way this word sounded that she used in conversation. I like the way it sounded coming out of her mouth. And I said, "Hold on a minute. Now there are two words for what you're saying. And I've heard you say both, but this one sounds like you're having fun saying it." And so
Mm.
she says it like another 6 or 7 times. And we're laughing and just like kind of dying over how fun it is. And it just opened up this world. It cracked open the conversation where we're trying to decipher from the immense value she brings to the table for an organization. What is it that she does?
Yeah.
And what else does she want to create? How does she want to deliver that moving forward? I'm helping her to put that into words and also helping her to strategize her creation of her work. The way I've
Mm.
created Say Things Better, I'm helping her to create her work. And
Mm.
just from the way that this funny thing sounded, we ended up creating the framework that we're about to work on together for her business, where she'll be taking this game into companies that she's creating that we're going to work on together. She's writing a book, writing an ebook. We have an animated illustrated series. This all came out of this one call from this one moment because I just liked the way she said something. And that's why I like to work with people who are open to being silly,
Mm.
because in the silliness, we are our most free and our most innovative and the most true that we are as to ourselves is there in that moment of silliness because we're unself-conscious. When
Yes.
we are truly free, we are creating things that are coming right out of our center of our greatest value. And so
Mm.
anytime that happens, it's thrilling. But last night, it just made me feel like, man, I'm just so grateful for what I get to do as a job. This is a job. And we were just like
Mm.
hysterical laughing. We ended up on this call for longer than we planned, but it just felt so good. And I believe in her so much. And we had a really good time. And whenever that happens, that's my favorite kind of collaboration.
Yeah, when you're having fun with a client and that's your work, that's heaven. That's
Yeah.
your work is purposeful 'cause, I do believe that when you create in joy, anything is possible.
Yeah. That's why to be
Mhm.
the joy fool, right?
Yes.
You
It
give
is.
that to people, Diana. You give them the freedom to access their most foolish parts.
Yeah.
When we were doing, what was the show? I think we were doing Midsummer Night's Dream
Mhm.
at Connecticut Free Shakespeare, and there's a section of characters doing a play within the play called The Mechanicals. And these people had rehearsals that were entirely separate from everybody else's because they had this play within the play and the creation of the play within the play within the play.
Yes.
And it was, you had to be the biggest possible fool you could be and go
Mm.
so far outside of your comfort zone and outside of what normal is in order to find the funny, in order
Yeah.
to find the brilliant, and in order to give the other actors in that group the freedom to be their silliest, most joyful, most productive selves as well. It was a huge exercise in trust to
Yeah.
go in, each of them willing to completely suspend ego and say, for the good of this story, for the good of the audience experience, I'm going to bring in my freest self so that you feel you can do the same. And each of them promising each other, I'll always be willing to be a bigger fool than you will. And you do that when you go into companies or when you speak at companies, when you do your workshops. I've seen the videos of people who are just kind of tentatively dancing around a little bit at the start. And then they just lose themselves and connect back to that childlike place of wonder and imagination when anything is possible.
That's it.
That's where people should be innovating from as often as they can.
And
I love what you do.
you perfectly have brought in my next question I want to ask you is, you've collabed with, another neat collab you've done is with Kristin Sherry, You've Got Values. The child, like allowing the child to see their superpowers, and a superpower is a value, not because they can fly or see or be invisible. It's values. And Kristin, in a previous interview with her on the launch show, she talked about how she understood process with you is that you're not a writer, you talk, and so she would collab with you and make that happen. Could you talk about your experience with You've Got Values? Oh, I think we might have lost Lila. We were so close. We've definitely lost Lila.
What if I do this? What if I wiggle about?
Yeah, got it. Yes.
I danced myself back into the stream. It worked.
It's
Kristin
getting
is one of
dark
my
over
all-time
there.
favorite people to collaborate with because she sees, acknowledges, and builds a creative process around who I am, rather than trying to squish me into somebody that I'm not.
Yeah.
And she has created this ability for other people as well with UMAP and with her series of books, the You've Got series. If you look up hashtag You've Got series, and then also look up hashtag You've Got Gifts, the first in the series of books. You've Got Values is the second. You've Got Skills is the third. And tomorrow, at least tomorrow in the US, we are launching the last of the 4 books in this series. You've Got Personality. And You've Got Values. Yeah.
There's everything. I'm a huge fan.
You've got all of them. You look like a collector.
Yeah, I'm a collector.
We've got a couple other books to get to you then, because I think she's just gotten in a proof of You've Got Quirks and You're Wonderful as well.
Yes.
But tomorrow launches You've Got Personality. You've Got Values we made together because so much of my work is in taking action in your communication that aligns with your values, who you really are, what you really believe, what your voice sounds like when it's true, and letting kids see that from the beginning of their lives gives them this leg up in every choice they ever make for their entire lives. Every one of these books is about empowering children to grow up into leaders who know how to make choices based on self-awareness. And that is so liberating to these kids, to know that there are going to be other people who have different strengths or who have different values or who like using different skills or who just are wired differently, have a different personality. And kids with quirks, in the 5 out of 4 in the series, there are all kinds of kids who've got things that are different about them. But without all of these things that are given to us, these things that we choose, without knowing what they are, we're not empowered to make our choices.
Yes.
So if you think about voting, right, for a political candidate, and you don't know anything about them, how is it really a choice? It's kind of like you tick a box, right, that somebody else tells you to. That's not your choice, that's theirs. So is it really your vote? And at the same token, is it really your voice? Is it really your life? If you're not making choices based on who you really are. And how can you do that if you don't know who you really are?
Yeah.
So this series of books gives children that knowledge, that self-awareness at such a young age.
Yeah.
So every choice they make is empowered.
And it's not for kids, it's also for parents, because they're witnessing their child growing. And I think it's a really great tool for parents to see and, not the word amplify, but to give a safe environment.
Yeah.
Mm.
To see their kids, like they're different from them, right? Like every kid is different from their parents in some way.
Yes. That's it.
And that parents don't understand that, right? Because you think like you've made this kid out of clay in your image. The sun is going down here, so I'm losing my
No.
light.
I know, we're doing in the dark with Lila Smith at the
I
moment.
know.
The launch off has switched off. Well, with the light coming to the end of the day for you, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on the launch off.
Thank you for having me. I always love being with you, and it was so good to have a chance to just reconnect with you and see your
Yeah.
face, be with these people. You know, the people who follow you, the people in your audience are always going to be people that I love.
Yeah.
Your people are my people.
The joy people. The joy people.
The joy people. Yes. Cheers to the joy people.
That's it. And I will see you, and we'll have a conversation after this, but I will see you in 2022 in America.
Yes.
I need to come
I
back
can't
and
wait.
have guacamole and have martinis and
Mhm.
margaritas by the poolside again. So
This
thank
time
you
you come, we're strapping you down and kidnapping you and not letting you leave again.
Oh, that would be great. Give me a visa. Marry me. And
I would totally marry you.
thank you for everyone for joining us on this Restream. And next week we'll be joined with Noreen Mosley and Steve Sullivan. You know Steve Sullivan.
I
He's
know
just
Noreen
released
too.
his
Yeah.
book. So we'll be talking about his new book as well. See everyone.
Apples and oranges on your team.
That's it. I've got it too. It's somewhere here.
You are stacked with books. I'll be there. I'll see you guys.
It's